Hi there, I'm Mark Sebastian, founder of OptionBid.com, and this is Butterfly Intensive Part 1, the Option Bid Method. Alright, so here's what you're going to learn. Alright, what is a butterfly or an iron butterfly? What are the Greeks of the butterfly? Basic setup. We're going to talk about setting up a directional fly. We're going to talk about hedging it, picking the right strikes, setting up a broken wing butterfly, a little bit on managing a broken wing butterfly, and a little bit of additional management for directional flies, and I'll talk a little bit about short iron butterflies as well. Alright, what is a butterfly? Let's take a look at two spreads and compare. This is spread number 1. What do you notice about it? Well, as time passes, you can see the different dates here. Alright. As time passes, the spread makes money. Alright. If it stays within a range, the spread makes money. And if the underlying moves a lot, the spread loses a lot of money. Alright. It's producing Greeks that are basically flat delta, short gamma, long theta, and short vega. Then you look at this spread. Well, what do you got here? As time passes, spread makes money. All right. If it stays in a certain range, the spread makes money. And if the underlying moves a lot, the spread loses a lot of money. All right. So the two spreads are very similar in that they are short gamma. So notice this is short gamma, long theta, and short vega. They are short gamma, short vega, and long theta. Okay, the same Greeks. All right. What's the difference? The severity. The severity. How strong are the Greeks that they have? Well, let's take a look again. All right, spread number 1 is, short 11 gamma, long 700 theta. Has short vega of about 6,400. This sucker, short less than half the gamma, collecting about a third of the decay with a vega that is about a third. So there's a very big difference in that severity. All right, and that makes all the difference in the trade. All right. Spread number 1, of course, is a short straddle, and spread number 2 is a butterfly. So really, an iron butterfly is just a straddle that is hedged. That's it. All right. A straddle is a sale of a call and a put at the same strike. Right. An iron butterfly is a call and a put sold at the same strike, hedged with long options at its extremes. All right, looks like that. All right. Well, we tend to never trade straddles because of the systemic risk issue. In other words, if the underlying tanks, I could be out of business. All right. One rule that we have, the number 1 rule. All right. What is the first rule of trading? What is the very top rule, number 1 rule, top of the food chain, you must know in order to trade? What is the number 1 rule? All right, Dave P's got it. Live to trade another day. Never put yourself in a position where you're unable to trade. One of the reasons why we always encourage people to close winners, all right, is that it puts you in a position to be able to trade the next day. Close losers puts you in a position to trade the next day. All right. Now the big difference, all right, between a fly and a straddle is the natural hedge. All right. Flies allow for, at least some degree of being able to sleep at night. Which is really important. All right, so the butterfly characteristics. All right. So what is in a butterfly? All right, and some of this is just natural thought process. All right, a butterfly wants the underlying to stay in one place. All right, if you want something not to happen, so if you want movement not to happen, if you want anything to not happen, you are short. Generally, and when it comes to options. All right. So in this case, you want the underlying to sit. You want the stock not to move. Thus, it's short realized volatility. The measure for exposure to short realized volatility is short gamma. This spread is short gamma. A butterfly wants nothing to happen. If nothing happens, it makes money. All right. Well, if you're an insurance company and no one gets in a car accident, do you make money? All right. If you're an insurance agent and you sell somebody a policy and they don't get into a car accident, what happens? Do you lose money or do you make money? Right, yeah, the company makes money. And that's all theta is. All right, so the fact that I'm collecting insurance premiums and I'm hoping nothing happens makes me long theta. All right. The butterfly does not trade across months and wants the perception of near-term movement to fall. All right. So not only do I want nothing to happen, I want people to bet that nothing's going to happen going forward. All right. That makes me short Vega. All right. So gamma is my exposure to how much the underlying is moving around. All right. Theta is whether I make money on that movement claim. All right. And then Vega is my exposure to, is how much is my policy worth going forward. All right. Where could I resell my policy? That's Vega. All right. The fly set at equal strikes is short the same strike and long equal strikes away from the money. This produces a fly that is close to delta neutral, but tends to be a short delta, and that is because of skew. All right, and I'll address this more soon. All right, but if I pull up a skew chart here. All right, so you can see this is a chart of skew in the S&P 500. All right. And what you'll notice is that, all right, calls right, so here's, we're 2370. Calls are not nearly as expensive as puts. All right. So if I have two strikes equal distances, but one has a higher volatility, it's going to produce a different delta. All right. If I go into April, all right. So we're trading around 2370. So if I go 50 bucks away, I've got involved 11.3 and a delta of 26.8. All right. If I go 50 bucks away, that takes me to 23.2 or 24.20. I've got a vol of 810 and a delta of just 22. Well, if I do a 10 lot of these, I'm picking up 5 short deltas per strangle. So a 10 lot's going to get me short 50 deltas. All right, that produces that short delta. All right. Any questions on kind of the basics of the Greeks in a butterfly? Do I use the skew curve to select duration? Generally, no, but I sometimes. If it skews, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, but just in brief, if the curvature is really out of whack, then I definitely will want to trade that month in a butterfly. All right, that makes sense? Good. So, any questions on the Greeks? Can you have a little movement while the price stays within the 10? Yes, you can. It's just a lot of movement that becomes a problem. Didn't mean to do that. The vol conditions do you like best for the setting these things up? I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. I just want to know if you guys have any questions about the Greeks or the basic setup. All right, then I will move on. All right, so let's talk about the standard fly. All right, a standard fly should be set up as such. All right, short at the money, long wings. Wing selection should be based on standard deviation, set at the number of days to expiration or the number of days one expects to be in the trade. All right, now I'm going to talk about this in a second, but do we all know how to calculate standard deviation? All right, it is the at the money strike price times its vol, remembering vol is a percentage, times days to expiration over days in a year, and the square root of that piece. All right, so in practice, all right, so let's talk about that. So if I am going to be trading a near dated option, so most of what we trade in our strategy letter here at Option Pit is with butterflies is short dated, typically less than 3 weeks. And in fact, typically around 2 is when we get into stuff, and inside of a week is when we get out. That's where we find the most value, we think. And that's really what drives things, right? And how we get ourselves set up. So then, let's say that I'm looking to set up a butterfly inside of 2 weeks. Or really, you could say inside of 3. All right, if I'm going inside of 2 to 3 weeks for my days to expiration, I want to use trading days. All right, so I want to use trading days. All right, so that's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and that's it. All right, I'm not counting the weekend. All right, other than the wrapper, the weekend, you don't count any other weekends. So if I was looking at the March 27th, I'd be looking at 2 plus 5 plus 1. So I'd be looking at 8 days. So I would go 8 divided by 252. All right, there are 252 trading days in a standard year. All right, there could be 253, there could be 251, but generally 252. Now, what creates that 252? Well, there are 365 days in a year, but we have 104 that are weekends. All right, we have 104 that are weekends. All right, we have 104 that are weekends. All right, so 365 minus 104 is 261. All right, so that gets us there. Then there are 9 standard days off in a calendar year. We have New Year's, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, 4th of July, Labor Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. 9 days. 261 minus 9, 252. So then I would take my 8 divided by 252, and I take the square root of that. Then I multiply it times my at the money volatility, 9.3. Remembering it's a percent, so it's 0.093. And then I take that and multiply it by the strike, which is 2370. So that is telling me I want a 40-point wide wings for my fly expiring on the 27th. All right, now, what about longer dated? You know, if I'm doing really a standard month, really don't do a butterfly outside of 35 days. There are more efficient trades. But, you know, there are much more efficient trades. So if I want to do this for a longer dated trade, let's say regular April, which expires about 35 days out, well, then I want to use just regular calendar days. It's much easier, and it makes less of a difference. Come on. So I would take my, this is 35 days. 35 divided by 365. Take the square root. Multiply that times at the money volatility, which is again 9.3. And then I'd multiply that times my at the money strike, 2370. And I'm looking at a 70, really 65-point wide fly. That is where I set my wings for a standard at the money, trying to make income butterfly. Generally. Now, there's some things that you might adjust where you set things up, but that's where I'm going to do it. All right, so that is how I put together my butterfly. All right, I'm using that stuff. All right, now, one thing you can do, all right, so let me pull up like a stock, pull up Apple. All right. Alright, so let's say I'm doing a butterfly and apple. Alright, now, let's say that it wants me to set up my butterfly at either the either the 120 or like the 115. Alright, so I can choose between these strikes. Alright, do you see anything off with the 115 puts? Do you see anything off with the 150 calls? Just visually. I didn't. Do you see anything off visually with the 150s and the 115s? No, I mean, if I look here, there seems to be a little bump there. So 1385, 87 to 1475 to 1568. So there's a big jump, a little bit of a jump. Same thing here, right? 2440. So I go from 2021 to 2440. So a 4.3 points to 2810. So under 4 points to here, more than 4.5 to here. They're off. So I would try and avoid these areas where, one strike is maybe a little jacked when you're setting these things up. So spend a little time just looking at what you're buying. And I'll get into that a little more. But in terms of using this chart to start, make sure you're not just buying a cruddy option, an expensive option. All right, if skew is out of whack, move your strike. Don't be married. Flies can be set up monthly inside of 35 days or weekly. We tend to do weeklies. All right. Now, why? It is easier for me to guess what's going to happen, over the next 3 to 4 days in a stock than it is for the next 2 weeks. And a monthly fly really needs about 10 days to burn, 10 trading days to really burn. A weekly inside of 2 weeks needs about 3 or 4 days. All right. And really, if you set your fly up well, all right, so if you do a good job on your butterfly, all right, and follow everything that we're going to talk about, a good butterfly is really just a game of chicken. You should be able to make good money in quickly, a few days, and then from there it's just a game of chicken, right? I don't really like games of chicken, so I'm probably going to be looking to not stick. I'm not going to be stuck in my butterfly. All right, so I want to get in for a couple days and then leave if I set it up right, especially with weeklies. All right, now, picking a good fly. What makes a good butterfly? What makes a good butterfly? All right, it starts with sinking or stable volatility. All right, realized vol and implied volatility really help. So IV flows HV. IV follows HV a lot of the time. Someone asked, how many days do you like to stay in a butterfly? If I'm in for greater than 5 days, I'm in the wrong butterfly. with weekly stuff. I mean, I think that's how we trade our strategy ladder for sure. All right, when HV is sinking, so is IV. Sinking vol is the trade and the thing for an at-the-money butterfly. There is XLF. You know, pretty stable, but you've got some areas where it pops. Here's a more interesting one in XLP. All right, not that great. Great. Not that great. Great. All right. And we can look at XLP. All right. So I'll show you. I'll pull up a chart now. All right. So let's go to my chart. So let's say we catch an idea that volatility is sinking around here. Late Feb. Here we are, 55 bucks. And I want to do a weekly fly, so we'll go to the March 10s. Well, take a look here. My March 10s, with this thing trading 55.09, you can see it hasn't moved very much. I get, or we can even just do regular March. That'll make it easier, because I'll get tighter markets. So my butterfly is going to be 60 and 55. So 115 and my 55s. And then if I set up my strikes, those IVs are a little off because forward values. So I'm going to call this we'll use this number here, 11. So I go, let's see, at 5, I've got 22 days. So 22 divided by 365. Oop. Square root times a vol of 11 times 55, 1.5 points. So I do the 55, I'm looking at like the 56 and a halves, 53 and a halves. So the only thing caveat I would give is I don't like buying an 8-cent option. Generally speaking, I don't buy options that are worth less than 8 cents as a hedge. So I would end up tightening this up to $1. So I get 115. Call this 15 cents and call this quarter. Minus 40. So we'll say I get 85 cents. We'll say 80 cents. Give some to the bid spread. So I get 80 cents out of this butterfly. All right, well, let's just see where we are Monday on my little butterfly, if I did it right. Tuesday, this is before Donald Trump speaks. So here we are 10 days later. How's my butterfly now? Well, My at the money fly is now worth 95. So my at the money straddle lost 20 cents. This is worth 10, and this is worth 15. So it's a quarter. So it's now worth call it 75 or 70. So we're 70. So I made 15 cents. If I did 15 cents, if I got 85, that'd be 20%. I'd make 15, let's just say 15 cents on 20 cents of risk, right? As a 1-point fly that I collected 80 cents on. So I only had 20 cents of risk, and I've already made 15 cents in 10 days. I could take my money there if I wanted to. All right, we wait another week. All right, now let's see what my fly looks like. This is worth 3 cents, and my 54s are worth 7. So 10 cents. My wings are worth 10 cents, and my straddle is worth 28 and 37. So 65. So it's now worth 55 cents. So it made 30 cents. Yeah, that's a good point. So that was one where I did a great job of trading XLP.